Today's topic is performance testing. And this is agenda for today. Short introduction from my side, how I introduce it into the project, how to understand and manage performance testing at all, and something from the practice, of course, conclusions and questions. So, yep, I'm from Levi9 IT Services. I'm test lead and department manager. It is an outsourcing Dutch company with some offices in Serbia, Romania, and Ukraine. So I'm from Serbia. Also Ph.D. of technical sciences, and I started as a teacher. I was teaching for some 8 years, so after that I switched a wheel in my career, so I started in IT world, in testing, manage it, I think good, you will see. So, yep, I like conferences to share knowledge, but also to learn. To meet different people. And my topic is chosen because I worked on many projects that are actually connected with performance testing. So from time to time, I got the project. It's outsourcing company, so we have different technologies, different tools, frameworks, and so on. So once before I became to think about performance testing, for first moment I just learned a bit, but then I got first assignment with performance testing tasks. But yep, performance testing is not just a task. That was my first mistake. So I pick a tool. It was like easily for me. Send some HTTP, HTTPS calls, get some good results, some nice graphs, some numbers. I didn't expect too much. Present it, I was satisfied, but then I find out that this isn't performance testing. So from the project to the project, I learned a lot. And in my last project, I jumped in to help colleagues, so from my company, but also from client side, to do the performance testing. Idea about performance testing for this project was from the point that we had a backend service that has a lot of communication with other services. So pure backend, API calls, and we had a lot of issues in production, a lot of flaky tests, regression, so functional testing. And in one moment, I reviewed all of them, and I just came up with idea about introducing the performance testing. So it's very hard to start non-functional testing, so performance testing is just one part of the non-functional testing, so we have usability, security testing also. So I started to first chat with clients how to introduce it and how to get them known about performance testing. And what types of performance testing do we want to use at all? So we have stress testing, load testing, spoke testing, so a lot of endurance, what we need to achieve there. So from the first point, we wanted load testing, and in second phase, we wanted stress testing. So I figure out that probably we have a lot of issues, performance issues in our service. And we started to get some introduction meetings. So about how to achieve those goals, how to understand what we are doing. They were out of experience for performance testing completely, so this was a big challenge for me, because if you don't know what to do, it's hard to explain, hard to involve other QAs in a whole story, and to be familiar and comfortable to do it. So I started to encourage them to read, to ask, and to learn with me. So I go through all phases of developing performance tests. So what is the first step? First step is to identify our environment. It was very hard and very challenging to convince the client that we need production-like environment, so similar to production and close. And that was first challenge. Why? Because I know what I'm doing and know what I'm asking from them. So we need software requirements, hardware requirements, informations about load balancers and so on from production, sensitive data, memory usage, processor usage, and so on. So it was very hard to get those informations because I wasn't on client side. So we managed to get one guy in the end that give us all those informations. And we started to documenting stuff. Documentation is very important in all types of testing, but especially in performance testing, to know what you should do and what you did already, just to not going back and to move forward. So this is something that is representing what we did in that moment. So we first identify our environment. Second step was to identify some resources. So human resources also. Is it needed to be one QA, two QAs, few developers, DevOps, or no DevOps at all? Do we have enough knowledge to cover DevOps area about setuping environment and all the things that we need? So in all those things, we need to be very careful, and also documentation, of course. So we started to do all that things, and third phase was to identify key scenarios. It's very important to be careful about, because it's very different when you are doing UI performance testing and API. I was on API, so it was very difficult to choose what API we are want to test. So basically, we gathered as a team, so all QAs and all developers, and started to search for our endpoints that are interesting for us and that have maybe huge response time, some throughputs that are not fit. Good. In previous phases, with help of PO and customer, we defined already some resources, but also we defined baseline. We need to define what we expect from those API calls. What is our expectations regarding throughputs, regarding memory usage, processor usage, and those numbers are not like the same in the beginning and maybe in the end. Because we are changing the baseline and adjusting it. So, of course, then we need to plan and to design performance test scripts. I must say that from my experience, it was much easier part for me. Harder part was to identify key scenarios, to prepare everything that we need, to get the numbers, because sometimes POs and customers don't know those informations. And it's a big struggle to get it and to convince them to have those things in mind. So when we started to plan and design performance scripts, we choose in that moment tool. So when you are choosing the tool, it's very important to have in mind what are your requirements: software, hardware requirements, customer requirements. It's not the same. Maybe they don't want to pay. So all licenses, tools are then in the site. So we had a lot of struggling with them because I have a lot of experience with the different tools. So they wanted in one moment Python-based Locust. I don't know, does anybody know something about the Locust? But they don't have any knowledge in Python. So how do you want to achieve that? The choice was, in the end, because of the license, of course, JMeter. I was not that happy in that moment, but it figures that, okay, they will manage, so clients QA will learn about it, and also QAs from my company will learn about it, so it was fine. So we started to configure environment, and we had a lot of help of DevOps guys, because sometimes QAs don't have enough knowledge about all requirements, about setting it, and we need to have most likely production-like environment. So sometimes clients suggest staging environment, and if you ask me, yes, sometimes it fits, but only if about 70% of environment is production-like, so including database and everything that we need. We had MongoDB. I wasn't happy with that, but that's it. I don't know how to implicit on this, so we started to configure environment, and we came to execute test scripts. So we prepared them in JMeter. That was, I think, most easier part that we had. After execution, client said, okay, that's it. We got the results. And then, again, we have some things. Okay, we have results. We have some nice graphs. So we get it from some plugins that we used, because JMeter doesn't have nice graphs. So we need more graphs, and then analyzing results is starting. Again, something that is pretty much difficult to understand what is going on. Maybe sometimes we have some bottlenecks, and we can immediately point it at it. So at the code, at certain API that is very bad. But sometimes we need to adjust our baseline and to repeat results. So running, analyzing again, and to rerun it and get some new results. When we are satisfying and we are stopping, I'm not sure do we ever stop, because we need some automation also in performance testing. I don't want to be locally, so we actually implemented in Circle CI, so everything was automated. And from time to time, you have new code, you have new development, So you are running again. Mostly there is a nightly job that we used, and before big releases. So that is apart from the practice, but not all. So what we need in one moment, we need full database because of some API calls. So we need to get some data and we need to prepare them. So we managed to add a lot of scripts to generate the data automatically. And that was something that was very interesting for me because it's JavaScript scripts. And we managed to have them. Also, writing the scripts was easily in one moment, but implementing into pipeline, it's not so easily. So there were plenty of some pitfalls that we had. So about environment, about JMeter scripts, about a lot of things. I don't have many things from the project because of the actually sensitive data that I cannot discover here, but this is like one POC that we did initially for the clients. A lot of API calls that we have. We didn't want to be hard-coded, so not even just protocol. Everything was in environment variables, so was written, not hard-coded. Host, all paths, and so on. So final step that I was actually proud on was automation. And we set our baseline regarding the response time, throughputs, load time, and so on in our repo on Bitbucket. So we started to analyze those results automatically. That was the last goal that we had, and we did everything to manage it and to be successful. So analyzing results was also automatically, completely. So nice results we had in our Circle CI. So exactly what is failing, because of what is wrong, what is the numbers in baseline, and what we got from the tests that are executed. So in those, this is just one request that is put request. It's very interesting, but I don't have much time, and it's wide topic. It's very interesting project also. So this is just one example of put call, API call, with all the values that we need. And you will see that we have a UID somewhere in the middle and EFC ID that are not coded. Also, we use some bash scripts for our API calls. And we managed to do a lot of things. And in the end, automation was done. We were very happy. Then I stepped out from the project. My part of the job was actually finished. Other QAs started to follow those steps and to take care about performance tests. So basically, what I can conclude here, so non-functional testing is really equally important as functional testing, and please try to involve into everyday job. It's rarely, I know that outsourcing companies had some problems with that. Clients don't want to do that. Okay, everything is functioning, everything is okay, so why? We should do it, but it's very important because we discovered a lot of performance issues and helped developers to fix them into the code. Also, managing performance testing is equally important, because if you don't follow the steps, you will fail. You will get some results that are not important and that are not relevant at all. So we must plan it. We must carefully take care about all parts of performance testing, so environment, resources, API calls, and everything. So what we are getting from those kind of tests are reliable results. Of course, founded bottlenecks, that is our goal, and better quality product. So basically, that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a few questions. The first one, how much functional validation is recommended during performance testing on an API?
How much?
How much functional validation is recommended during performance testing of an API?
No, I will say that this is completely different. So functional testing is something that we are doing every day, from day to day, and it's mandatory by requirements, by our clients. But non-functional testing, so performance testing as one type, is not something that is mandatory, but still we should do it and convince the client that it is important, and we must take care about if we have some requirements about performance of web application. It is very important to follow that and to proceed with non-functional testing.
So, well, the question was about how can we combine the functional testing with non-functional testing? What are the possibilities? Because we combine in reality. So,
actually, I think that we can do some combination regarding the automation, both of them. So we have this combination in sense of releases, in sense of when we have big changes of the code, of course, then we have also functional and non-functional testing. But non-functional testing is completely optional. It's not mandatory. So also in the pipeline, you need to have some triggers for some moments like that.
Similar question regarding to this one. How can we embed the performance testing in our shift left, shift right, shift everywhere world? So what do you think? When should we start the performance testing? After the functional one, or before, in some sense, or even in lower levels?
I would say that we need to start it. We are in agile environment, so from the start of the sprint, if we have some big and important release or some changes that are so important to us, so that is the moment that we are starting functional and non-functional testing, both of them, and we are trying to finish it until the end of the sprint. I know it's very hard for this, but you need a lot of preparation, and that is something that you not work by yourself. So whole team needs to be dedicated to the testing and help QA to do that. So it's, I think, something that we are doing in parallel.
Thank you. Another question by Anonymous. Any best practice on how to get non-functional requirements in case when there is none given?
Okay, this is one interesting question, because often we don't have any non-functional requirements, and that is very bad for QAs that are doing non-functional testing. So if we don't have any, we just following those lines. So if we see that something is very bad, so we can see also from the functional testing that some, for example, API call is during and taking a lot of time. So that is the moment that we can react with non-functional testing.
And the last question by Norbert Patai: how would you approach performance testing from the UI perspective instead of testing the backend? What tools and practices do you recommend?
Oh, for UI testing, it's pretty much in JMeter is actually very similar. So yeah, the paths are different, of course, because it's not the same if we have API call or UI call. But from the perspective of the tools, it depends again about from the requirements of the client, possibilities of the client, requirements of the hardware and software. So it depends on many things, but you have a lot of tools that you can use it for performance testing for UI and for API also. So, for example, Gatling, that is Scala-based, but in the beginnings, now Gatling has strong support for Java and JavaScript. Also, we have Python-based. So, if you are comfortable with some programming language, maybe that is the first choice to learn something that is familiar to you. Also, a lot of things as Neoload, as JMeter, BlazeMeter also. So a lot of tools that are very good and possibilities are very large for all of them. So depends on perception and from the point of requirements.
So thank you very much. Still we have a bit time for questions because we need to synchronize to the other room. So one question, please come.
Thank you very much. I'm Faisal. So I need your opinion on a scenario, a generic scenario. So for example, if I send 10,000 requests via JMeter for performance result, the Ethernet has some limitation which will affect the performance result. If I move it to the cloud system, then still the request will come to my test network. Again, we have network Ethernet limitation. So how we can evaluate this performance result? Because the Ethernet will affect the performance result.
Okay, this would be a strange probably answer for you, but yeah, we always have a big costs in the beginning where we are setuping, using the tools, and of course, some costs on cloud. We worked this example is with Google Cloud, so everything was in the end in Google Cloud storage and so on. So yeah, you have some costs, but in comparing with the costs when you have a performance issues, those are small costs. Those are big one, and a company that is not my company. We just work for them. They felt on their skin, so they lost a lot of customers because this is just. Do I have some time? Okay, I will be short. So the project was about charging electrical cars, payments, and so on. So they are losing constantly customers because of the application. So very slow on mobile. They have like low recommendations from customers, and that was very costly for them. So yeah, they had some investment about performance tests, and we had some big performance issues, fixed them not in first moment, of course, because there was a lot of problems. So in the end, those costs were not comparable at all with those costs that they had in the beginning with lost client. So basically, yeah, you have some expenses in the beginning, but I think you must have a different view about that. I know it's hard very to convince the client that invest some money, but yep, those are the challenges about non-functional testing.